Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my January wrap-up. So 2024 really started off well reading-wise for me. I read 13 books and the lowest rating that I gave a book was 3 stars, which is amazing. I do believe that with some of my ratings I would have rated it a bit lower if it had been any other month that I read it in, like any other situation, any other state of mind. I would have probably rated it lower. I will talk about those books when they come up, but I had 2 3 stars, 1 3.75 star, and I'm sorry, I normally just go with half stars. I usually don't do 0.75 stars, but there's a reason for this. I'm going to talk about that when the book is mentioned. I have 7 4 stars, which wow. I had 2 4.5 stars and 1 5 star, so I'm really happy with how it all turns out. I also read the whole age range, and it's really interesting to see that my 5 star was my middle grade and my 2 3 stars were both young adult titles. I'm gonna go in reading order. I started the year off strong with a book that I've been meaning to read for a while now. I got it from my library multiple times. I gave it back. I wasn't really feeling it when I was trying to read it last year. So at the beginning of the year I was like, this is it. I'm gonna go with it. And I'm really glad that I did because it was the first 4 star of the year, and it's Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Tersch. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. It should be like the same Tersch as the Hungarian pronunciation, so hopefully that's the right one. I'm sorry if it's not. So Ink Blood Sister Scribe is the story of 2 families that have special powers that they get from using magical books, and these tomes, these magical tomes, derive their power from being written in blood. So it's a bit spooky in that aspect, especially if you consider that the main character's father was killed by one of the books. He was apparently trying to write something with it or using the magic, and it just sucked all the blood out of him. So there's an image for you. So like I said, this follows 2 families that have these kind of magical books and their very different approach to using them. You have the one family where Esther and Joanna were taught that they have to keep these books secret, that nobody should know about them, that these should be kind of seen as a treasure that they have to protect from the outside world. They want to protect magic from just being used by anyone, and so they keep to themselves. Nobody is allowed to know them. They have a very secret life, and even before their father died, Esther has kind of left the family. There's a reason behind it, but we don't know it in the beginning. She left the family. She is moving from town to town. She is not staying anywhere for longer than a year. Her sister doesn't know why. She doesn't know why she left at all. And now that their father is dead, Esther's sister Joanna is kind of feeling very isolated and alone. She has no real knowledge of what else is out there and what is supposed to happen now that she's all alone with these magical books. You have another family that has gone about the whole magical ability thing in a very different way. So they kind of make money with using this magic to further their own interests. So when these 2 families and these 2 ways of life collide, it's gonna get very chaotic and very interesting. So the whole idea of the bloodletting and like paying for magic with blood is very interesting in this book. I would have liked to see more of it. I would have liked to go into this whole world more and see how this magic affects the normal mortal world. We kind of stay with the characters like in their little bubble, so we don't really get to see much of the outside. I would have liked that a bit more. Maybe then it would have been a 5 star, but I do really like the atmosphere, the way these kind of different homes and libraries of these books were written, and I really enjoy the relationships between the characters. I couldn't get enough of them. I love the banter. I love the kind of not knowing who you can trust. I do have to say that I wasn't really surprised by anything. So if you're looking for like this one fantasy book that has like this great plot twist that you're gonna be like, wait, what? That's not this one. So this one is more of, you kind of get introduced to this world, and if you read closely you can kind of puzzle it together yourself. You don't really need the big reveal in the end. It's just kind of a a nod, like, yeah, you had it right all along. So that kind of book. So maybe that's also why I didn't give it a 5-star, because I do kind of need, maybe not like the big reveal that I didn't see coming, but I do kind of need something where I'm like, oh, okay, well, of course, this makes sense now. So I kind of need a kind of plot twisty kind of thing. So yeah, that was my first read of the year. I'm really happy that I read it. Like I said, it's been on my radar for a very long time. I really enjoyed it, and I can highly recommend it. The second book of the year was also something that I've been meaning to get to for a very long time, ever since I saw it on Riley Marie's channel, and she said that it was one of her most loved fantasy romances, so I've been eyeing it for a very long time. It's Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher, and this in fact is my 3.75 star. So like I said, I usually don't read 0.75, but with this one I just couldn't help myself. It wasn't a 3.5. I thought it deserved more than that, but when I thought about giving it 4-star, I wasn't quite there yet. But I think on Goodreads I put it at 4 because I just love T. Kingfisher's writing style. I love the banter between these people. At some point the storyline, the plot line was drawn out, and it could have just gotten a little bit more edited. At one point I was like, oh, okay, we're almost finished with the story, but then like this huge thing still happened, and I was like, okay, so the pacing was kind of off for me. Sword Heart follows the story of Hala, who we meet in the beginning of the book. She just inherited like a large estate and a lot of money from her great uncle. Sadly, she also has other relatives that didn't really want her to get the inheritance, so they kind of put her in a room. So to get out of the situation, she tries different tactics to get out of this locked room. Nothing helps. So in the end, she spots a sword that has kind of been forgotten, and it's been put up on the mantle, and it's just decorative. She's probably the first one in a very long time to draw the sword, and when she does, there's a magical being that is kind of cursed to stay inside the sword, and he comes out and she is his new master, and so he helps her to escape, and they go on a quest to the next city so she can get her inheritance, basically. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a really great fantasy romance, and I am going to read more of T. Kingfisher. I do think if you liked this one, you will also like Nettle and Bone, and vice versa. So if you like Nettle and Bone and you were thinking about reading Sword Heart, you go for it, because it's the same kind of writing style. Because T. Kingfisher does have different genre and different kind of stories that she writes. The next book that I read was Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. This is my first book by this author. I have since then started another one. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. It's about Viola, a vampire who is also a real estate agent. To her chagrin, she just got a listing where there is a ghost who doesn't really want to move on with his life. He wants to find out who murdered him. So she's stuck with him. So she tries to get a medium to help out, just to see where this is all going. She just really wants to get this ghost out of the house. Little does she know that Fox de Moray is also the godson of death, and from there it's just chaos, pure chaos. I have to say, for like 50% of this book I was kind of lost with all the paranormal beings and like what the story in itself is. And if you read from this author before, you know that she does this. She has a very unique writing style. You kind of don't know what's going on, and they were talking about this game that Death plays with people, and it's kind of like an underground gambling situation that he has going on, and everybody's like, don't play with him, because like a casino, the house always wins. But they stayed very vague about what this game actually is, what is happening, what they have to pay in order to like play this game. And in the end it made sense why they did it like this, but it just annoyed the shit out of me for the longest time in this book.
Why? Why? Oh, that's why.
So in the beginning I said there are some books that I would have probably rated lower if it were any other situation, and this is one of them, because I was annoyed and I was kind of lost for a big portion of this book, but the ending really helped me make this jump to 4 stars, because it was really well done. I really liked the ending, the way it all came together in the end, and I already have this book on my reread TBR because I do think if you know the ending, you can go back and just read it in a very different way. So for me, a great ending can influence my reading experience a lot. Like, I can forgive a meh, like, middle if the ending is great. So this is also going to be the thing with another book that I read this month. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I do have to say I tried the audiobook with this one. I didn't really enjoy how the voice actor did some of the characters. I wasn't feeling it, so I just left it at some point and just read it physically, and that was the way to go for this one. The next book that I read was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This has been on my TBR forever. I even had a NetGalley arc for when it was released, and it's been sitting on my shelves ever since. I think I had a bit of a wrong impression of the plot. I thought it would take place nowadays, but it actually takes place, I want to say, like in Victorian era, but that's wrong, I think. So it's historical fantasy, and that I enjoy very much. I loved the first chapter of this. So the first chapter shows us the main character. Her name is Signa, and Signa is a baby still, and this, is it a prologue? Is it the first chapter? So there is a very big party and everybody's there. Her mother is like a social butterfly, and then all of a sudden everyone dies except for Signa. And Death kind of tries to take her, but he can't. He's very intrigued by this. And so when she moves from one guardian to the next, Death is kind of always there, keeping an eye on her. Her relatives or her guardians kind of die around her, and she thinks, maybe it's me. So when she finally gets to the Hawthorns and she sees that her cousin is really sick, but she's probably like the first friend that she's ever had, she kind of wants to try to find out like what's happening before Death can take her only friend. It's very gothic, it is very atmospheric. I really enjoyed that part, and I really enjoyed like the beginning, and when she arrives there and all of that. I really did enjoy that part. For me though, I couldn't gel with the main character. I thought she was kind of annoying, kind of naive in some ways. Of course, it's kind of the way she was brought up and the kind of like situation that she has. She can't really know much more in order for this story to work. But she just annoyed the crap out of me at some point. There's kind of like a love triangle going on I wasn't really a fan of. Like, I wasn't really interested in any of the love interests, and the love story I couldn't care less about. Yeah, this is the beginning of a trilogy. I'm not sure I'm gonna continue with it. Maybe when everybody's like gushing about this, I'm gonna have FOMO and I might go back to it. I'm not opposed to it, but yeah, wasn't really feeling this one so much, so I gave this one 3 stars. Next we have another book that has been on my shelf for a very long time. So looking back, I'm really happy with how many TBR vets I got off my shelves in January, so yay me. But that was She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is a reimagining of the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty in Imperial China. So we start off the book when the Mongols are occupying China, and we have a historical note in the beginning, which I really appreciated because I don't really know a lot about China and Chinese history. I grew up on Mulan, so this is kind of adjacent to that, and we have kind of a reimagining of Mulan in this as well, but there's just so much more in what this character is going through than in Mulan. So we have this girl who is born to poverty. Her family's killed off by this conflict that they have in this country at this moment, but instead of giving up, she takes on the role of her, like the identity of her brother, and goes into a monastery to survive. She is dealt a very hard hand, and the story shows how she goes through life, how she works and puts her mind to it to survive and just get better and get more glory out of everything. In the beginning, there is a prophecy that her brother gets, that he is going to be great, that he's going to be one of the names that are never forgotten in history, and she doesn't have a prophecy. There is no future for her. But when her brother dies, she just seizes the opportunity to just get his prophecy, and she's doing anything and everything to make this prophecy go the way that she wants it to. And I really enjoyed that in this book, that you have this character who's ruthless in a way. She is a very lovable character. I really felt for her and I just wanted her to succeed, but at the same time you see this ruthlessness. She's not the best person because she does go above and beyond, and if there are people in her way, she gets rid of them. You kind of know, since we know there is going to be the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty, so you kind of know where this story is going, but to see the different hurdles that she has to go over in order to reach that destiny is great, and it's written so well. So I really loved this. I'm really happy that I finally got to it. I gave it 4 stars and I will definitely pick up the sequel. The next thing that I read was Crooked House by Agatha Christie, and this was for Gavin from Gavin Reads It All's solve along that we do on his Patreon. It was so much fun. We always have fun with our live shows and our solve alongs, and even in the past when the book weren't that great, it's still a lot of fun. So if you want to join, it's always a good time. But with this one I actually enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. We follow a murder that happens, or is it a murder? We don't really know. There is a death happening in a very wealthy family, the Leonidas I think it's pronounced, and we follow Charles, who just got back into the country and he wants to finally get engaged to his girlfriend, and sadly it's her grandfather that just died, and she is kind of like, I think something's going on. Can you as an outsider come to our family home and just see what's going on? I'm not going to go into more details. It's a typical Agatha Christie. There is a house full of suspects. Everybody kind of has a reason to want this person dead, and they all had opportunity to do it. There is more than one death happening in this book, and it was really well done. I really enjoyed the solve along. I didn't really solve it. We always read to a certain point, then we talk about it, our theories and stuff, and then we on the live show we read the ending and the reveal of the killer. I didn't get this one. I'm sorry I didn't. I saw some of it. I didn't really solve it. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. On to the next book that I read, and this one was another 3-star. This one was the other young adult title that I read. Again, it was a NetGalley arc that I had, and it's Thief's Gambit by Kavian Lewis. This is a heist story as we follow the Quest family, and they are known for being like one of the top heist families. Like if you want something stolen and it seems like it's impossible to get something, you go to the Quest family, they will get it for you. And it's Ross with her mother and her like aunt. They all live the heist life basically, but because they're also well known, they of course are very suspicious of other people. So Ross kind of grew up isolated just with her family, and I think they even have like a saying that goes, don't trust anybody except family. So that's kind of the starting point of this. She just wants to get out, live her life, go to college, do something outside of her family and outside of like heisting. Is that a word? I'm not sure. And when she finally sees the opportunity and tries to escape her home, her mother gets kidnapped, and she is kind of desperate to get her back. And in order to do that, she has to take part in this cutthroat competition, which is a competition that gets all the young people from all the criminal enterprises all around the world. They get together, they have a competition, and the winner gets to have like a big reward. They have like one wish that they can have, and she just of course wants her mother back. She hopes for like a big win, and so she joins this competition in order to save her mother. Of course there's this aspect of who can she trust. Is there like maybe even a love interest, or is he playing her? There is a lot of action, a lot of heists, and it's a lot of fun in that way. It's very action-packed, but I didn't really enjoy the love interest part. I could have gone without it. Also, again, this character was just too naive, and like for one, she is supposed to be this great criminal mind, but at the other end she's just a very naive girl. And again, it's how she was raised and everything, but it's just I just couldn't get on with it. I wasn't really happy with the reveal. I kind of saw it coming. The ending was very rushed in my opinion. There is going to be a sequel. I'm probably going to DNF this series, but for what it was okay. It was okay. Another thing that I have to say about this, and I just noticed this with different books in the recent past, and it's that I'm not really sure what the marketing people are thinking when they compare certain books with certain movies or other books, that they think it's popular culture, people will know it. So with this one, they say it's Inheritance Games, which I understand, meets Ocean's 11. And for me, I'm like, yeah, of course I know what that means. I grew up with Ocean's 11 and the other movies, so I know of course what they mean when they say it's like Ocean's 11. But this is a new release. This is targeted to an audience that weren't alive yet when Ocean's 11 was in cinema or like was shown on TV. Is Ocean's 11 really such a big deal that the new generation know what it means when it says it's Ocean's 11? I'm not sure. So is this marketing targeted towards the older audience that is still reading YA? Is it targeted to the parents that are potentially buying this for their kid? Possibly. I don't know. I think it's kind of weird to go that route. Again, it happened with Starbringer by Tracy Wolff and Nina Croft. And they're comparing it to Firefly meets Breakfast Club. Which, of course, like, I know what Breakfast Club is, even if it was before my time. And Firefly, again, was kind of my youth. Kind of showing you how old I am right now. But again, is this something that people of the new generation will understand what it means? I'm not sure. I'm guessing this is for like a new adult audience, which should be like 18 to 25-ish. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're the people that would know this reference. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these are just movies, series, and books that all ages know about. I don't know. I don't know. Let me know. I mean, those were buzzwords for me. I mean, I love all of those that they mentioned, and that's the reason why I wanted these arcs. But still, I mean, maybe find better comparisons for your target audience is what I'm saying. Anyway, that was a rant. Let's go back to the books that I read last month. The next book that I read was Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter. This I gave 4.5 stars. I enjoyed this so much. If you can, go the mix route, like read it physically but listen to the audiobook because it has a full cast. So this book is kind of set up like a documentary. You have 6 episodes, 1 killer, and it's kind of set up like a Netflix documentary is being filmed about something that happened 20 years ago, which is that the stepfather of the producer, who was himself 10 years old when this happened, was killed at home when the kid himself was at home asleep. His stepfather was killed. No one really knows what happened. It's been 20 years and he kind of wants to use this documentary to find out more clues, and he wants to have this very revealing kind of style of the documentary where they really find new evidence and maybe even find a killer. It's so well done. I really enjoyed it. Because of the multimedia style, you don't really get to go into much depth of the characters that are on page because there are different experts trying to solve this, and you only get to see like what they are telling you in this episode. So there is kind of that missing depth to some of the people that you read about, but in the end it was so well done. I really enjoyed it, and I did like the reveal in the end. I did like that. The next thing I read is also because of Gavin from Gavin Reads It All, and it was inspired by his stay in a hobbit hole where he read all of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and I started my reread of The Lord of the Rings as well in that week. So I read the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring, and even though I wanted to go in chronological order, I'm going to tell you that I also read The Two Towers in January, so for February I only have to reread The Return of the King. But yeah, I'm going to talk about both of these books as one part going forward. This, if you don't know, The Lord of the Rings is an epic fantasy that is like the basis of a lot of modern fantasy. Like, this is the original. Like, this is where all of our like orcs and elves and stuff like that is coming from. I'm sure there were other things before The Lord of the Rings, but it's such an intricate and well thought out world that you have to read this. I read the German translation of this when I was maybe 11. So it's been over 20 years since I've read this. And since then, I've been telling people that it was a great book, that I really enjoyed it, but that things annoyed me kind of while reading it. And I always said it was how the description of forests lasted for like 20 pages. And it turns out that isn't even true. Oh my god. So I'm sorry to all the people that I told that lie to. I'm sorry, it's not true. Read this, it's really great. What I should have said is that there are so many songs in this book. That annoyed the shit out of me with this reread, but I loved it nonetheless. It's only a 4.5 because of the songs, because some of the detours that they take on this quest are so long and I have so many details that you don't really need for the story. That's kind of where the 0.5 is cut from my perfect read. But I enjoyed this so much. If you don't know, The Lord of the Rings is about this huge world, the Middle Earth, where different races are kind of living together. A long time ago there was a war that happened. There was a villain and he was destroyed, and his ring where he got his powers from was lost. Now it's been found, and there is the possibility for this evil being to come back and take over the world again. This ring is found by a hobbit, which is a little creature. The hobbits basically just want to have nothing to do with adventures. They just want to have their little hobbit holes where they live and eat and enjoy life. I mean, who doesn't? And when this one hobbit finds the ring, it just sets off this big adventure, and that starts in the Fellowship of the Ring, where they put together like a group of different characters: an elf, a dwarf, humans, hobbits, a wizard. They all go and try to destroy this ring in order to stop this big villain. Like I said, I read the Fellowship of the Ring, and then I continued with the Two Towers. I enjoyed both of these rereads, and with this, because I got this when I was a teenager, when I was living in the US. We went to Costco and this was there, and I've just seen the movies back then, and I really wanted to own it, because the translation that I read was from my mother and I really wanted to own like the original text. So I got this really awkward bind up with like the movie pictures and everything. It was actually a great way to read this. It's so floppy, and also because I don't really care about this edition, I could annotate it. So I did that. There are so many great quotes that I just underlined. The bromance in this is so amazing. Also, I kind of noticed the differences between the books and the movies. For example, I thought it was so interesting. There is like a big death at the end of the first movie, but it happens in the second book, in this one, at the beginning of the second book. And in the movies you see this big action scene where this person is shown how he fights before he dies. And in this one you only get to this point where he is slain already, where he's dying, and you have this big explanation of what happens afterwards when they are thinking about, okay, we have to have like a funeral, what do we do? And you get to see the funeral part, which I found so interesting, which I didn't even think about when I was watching the movies. So there are so many like details of this world, of this story, that you don't get to see in the movies, or that you only get to see in the Hobbit movies, that are explained in this one. And when I was watching the Hobbit movies, I was kind of like, where do they get all this extra plot that you don't really read in the Hobbit? It's in here. So if you have not read this, read it. It's amazing. It's really fun, and I would really highly recommend listening to the audiobooks as well by Andy Serkis. He's the actor that portrayed Gollum in the movies, and he's doing the voices, and it's all amazing. Yeah, read this. It's amazing. The Two Towers is 4 stars for me. One thing that I didn't really enjoy was that there is like a separation. You have the half of the book is, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't read this, so you follow certain people of this group in the first half of the book, and then you have a second part where you just follow someone who has the ring and is trying to get to the point to destroy it. Like in the movies, you've kind of switched between these POVs. In the book, you just stay with one aspect of the story, and for that it was kind of getting to a point where I was bored with the second half and I kind of wanted to just move along. But yeah, that's why it's a 4-star. I do anticipate loving the last book, so I can't wait to get to that in February. Let's get to the 5-star of my month, and that was the middle grade that I was reading. It was a recommendation from Jade from JD Reads, and it's No One Leaves the Castle by Christopher Haley. I didn't really have this on my radar at all, and when I had the opportunity to read it from my library, I just took it, and it's amazing. If you can, listen to the audiobook. It was so fun. It's a story about a family of monster hunters that aren't really hunting many monsters anymore, but they have this reputation. And when one of their most valuable things gets stolen, they set out to get a bounty hunter in order to find out who took it and get it back. This bounty hunter is the Lilac, which has like this reputation of being like the best bounty hunter. But in fact, she's just a little girl who is just setting out to be a bounty hunter, and this is gonna be her first big case. So a lot of chaos, a lot of great characters. I just love the banter. I just kind of want to reread it. Yeah, love it. Next, I read the German translation from 12 Secrets by Robert Gold. I read this for my work and I enjoyed this very much. There are some parallels to the Murder in the Family book. This follows the story of Ben Harper, and when he was a little kid, his brother and his brother's best friend were murdered by 2 girls who went to school with them. Even though it was solved right away, the waves of what happened kind of destroyed Ben's family. It was only ever him and his mom after the death, and 10 years later his mother commits suicide, and so it's just him 10 years later, when like the 10th anniversary of his mother's death occurs, that Ben sets out to find out what made her do it. He never really believed that it was a suicide, and he goes back and tries to figure out what's happening. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was well done how all of this takes place in a part of, I think it's right outside of London, and you have this grass knoll, I don't know what it's called. You have like the houses of everyone who is affected by this. They all live right next to this this grassy area, and you as the reader have the feeling of standing right there with them and looking inside of these houses and finding out what's happening behind closed doors. There is so much going on. I do have to tell you that there is a trigger warning for sexual assault, multiple sexual assaults. Interestingly enough, they are okay with like showing the SA, but they aren't showing the murder itself, because they keep saying this was so gruesome, the girls killed them in such a gruesome way, and they only say this. They don't really show what's happening. They don't really explain what they did with the boys. I'm guessing there's the line that the author took, like, you can't show the murder, but you can show multiple sexual assaults, which I found was a very strange decision, but okay. So I just wanted to let you know, and like if you have a problem with that, if that is like a trigger that you don't want to have in your books, just be aware, because it's nowhere in the synopsis. But yeah, I really enjoyed the mystery part of this and the writing style of this. It is the beginning of a series. I think it's called the Ben Harper series. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with this. I enjoyed the part where this had to do with his past. Not sure if I like going forward that he's just a reporter reporting on other crimes. I'm not sure if I'm going to be into that, but we'll see. The last book that I read for January was The Other Side of Night by Adam Hamdy. I think I saw this one on Kayla's channel, but I can't be sure, so sorry if it's not. I saw it on someone's channel and they were speaking highly of it, so I always kept it in the back of my mind, and when I saw that I could get it from my library, I snatched it up. I went with the audiobook and ebook route, like I did with most of my books. I think there was only one book that I read physically without any audio. Everything else I read ebook or physical, but always with an audiobook, which is something to maybe take notice of and see where it takes me in the future, because right now I feel like I can't read physically without having an audiobook. I feel like there's something missing, but I don't want to keep putting books off just because I don't have an audiobook for them, because there are so many that I really want to get to, but I don't have an audiobook. So let's just see where February goes with that. The Other Side of Night. I don't want to say too much about the plot, because even saying the subgenre would tell you something about this book. So I'm just going to tell you the main genre, and that's a mystery. Very atmospheric, very creepy at times. You have this family that had some big losses recently. You have a police detective who got kind of fired for a reason that is not known to you in the beginning. And she's trying to get her job back when she finds a book that she got from the library, and it has like a line that says, "Help me, he's trying to kill me." And she finds out who wrote this, or who had the book before her, and it's a woman that recently died of cancer. And when she goes to investigate it, the woman's husband seems to have committed suicide, and the only one left is their son Elliot in this big house with a guardian who's called Ben. And surprise, surprise, Ben actually is someone that Harriet, the detective, knows from a year ago when they dated, and he cut her out of his life, didn't really reach out to her again. He kind of ghosted her, he broke up with her, and just didn't really give a reason. So she has different reasons to go after this and try to find out like what happened, and if there actually was a murder in this house, in this family. It's really well done. Again, like with Masters of Death, I think this could have been a 3.5 in any other reading month. I gave it 4 stars right now because, again, the ending really saved it. I kind of knew the subgenre of this, so I saw it coming, but it did have like a really big twist that I didn't see coming. So it was all good in the end. Again, something that I would love to reread, and just to like highlight which things I saw when I first read it and all the other little hints that I didn't realize were hints. So yeah, don't want to go into more detail than that, because I do think it's best to go in blind and not knowing too much of it. So those are the 13 books that I read this month, but I do want to quickly tell you I DNF'd one book. Not because I didn't like it, but because I just think it would have been more like a 3 or like a 2.5 star. But I do quickly want to talk about the books that I started and if I plan on continuing with them. So the first that I started was Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is an arc that I had for a January release, and since then I have finished it. I really highly recommend it, and if you can, listen to the audiobook. It's amazing. Butcher and Blackbird is mostly a romance with a very dark setting, because it's 2 serial killers who fall in love and kill together. But they do kill other serial killers, so it's all good. Very dark at times. I can't really look at ice cream the same way. If you know, you know. But yeah, it's really good. It's really funny, and I would highly recommend. But I didn't read it in January, so that you didn't hear this right now. So then I have Ebony Gate, which is a paranormal mystery, and it's written by Julia V and Ken Babel. And I started this. I had to give back my audiobook for this. I have an arc for this. I've been meaning to get to it. I just didn't in 2023, so I was kind of hoping to get it done now. I do think I'm gonna enjoy it, so I do want to continue in February when I get the audiobook back from my library. But yeah, so far so good. I started Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. This one, it might be a DNF. I'm not sure yet. I'm waiting to get the ebook back from my library for this one. I'm also listening to it via audio, but I do think I need both because the writing style is very unique again, and yeah, in order to really understand and understand everything, I kind of need the ebook, but it might be a bit too out there for me. This is the love story of 2 people, and yeah, that's kind of it, a love story. Next, I started a sci-fi, which is The Mortality Thief by Taryn Hunt, and I ran out of time again. With a lot of these, you will see it's because of my library that I didn't really get to continue with them. So this is a big sci-fi epic adventure. This didn't like reel me in right away, so I think I will read it at some point, but it might not be this coming month. But I do like it, and I did enjoy, like from what I read, I really enjoyed the main character because he has very, how can I say this, side character energy, but in the best way. So kind of where you have this quirky, unique side character that has like great quips. That's kind of the main character in this one, so I'm very intrigued to see where this one goes. But it might not happen in February. Another TBR vet that I started in January was Castles in Their Bones by Laura Sebastian, and this I actually started in September last year. This is a fantasy romance that follows three sisters that were kind of raised to infiltrate other countries, other kingdoms, in order to take them down so their mother can take over, and you follow them when they start off to go to their weddings. I really enjoy it so far. I'm on page 118 and I am annotating it, kind of. You can't really tell, but I am, because there are so many princesses, so many princes, so many kings, so many kingdoms. It's hard to keep track of. Or it's not really hard to keep track of because this is YA, so it is kind of easy to just read this and go with it. But I kind of want to keep an eye out for everything. I really enjoy this. I had hoped to read this for Buzzwordathon, for Kayla's Buzzwordathon, Readathon that is happening all throughout the year. In January, you're supposed to read something with "there" in the title, so I was kind of hoping to read it then. But I do Buzzwordathon differently from everyone else. I read whatever I want to read, and if I can check one of the monthly things off, it's great. And it doesn't have to be in the month that the buzzword is from. I don't want to have a book that works for this one prompt, but it might only be a prompt that is going to happen further down the line, and I don't want to not read this book just because I want to keep it for that exact prompt, and in the end I don't get to it because maybe something else happens in that month, or I don't get around to reading it, and then I waited and didn't read it when I really wanted to read it, if that makes sense. Anyway, I will continue with this one in February, definitely, and I'm really enjoying it so far. And the last book that I started in January is another translated work. It's called Wilde Freude by Sorge Chalandon. I'm sorry. I looked up how to pronounce this and I already forgot it again. I'm sorry. This is translated from French and the original title is Une joie féroce. And again, sorry about the pronunciation. I used to take French and I should be better at this. This follows a group of women who, like the main character, she is diagnosed with cancer, and it all ends up in a heist where they, I think, do a bank heist, I think. Not there yet, so I don't know when that happens. She gets breast cancer in the beginning, which is kind of like a trigger for me, but it's done in a very well way, if that makes sense. I have people in my life who went through this, and the way that it's described with how people react, what kind of questions you have about it, like how the doctors interact with you, it's very authentic. And it's kind of weird because it's a male author writing about breast cancer, and it kind of tracks. So I don't know if someone in his life went through this. I don't know if he's just good at his job. But so far I like it, and I do want to continue with this one. So that's it for me for my January wrap up, and I'm hoping that February is gonna be as nice as January was. Like the first two books that I already finished in February are highly rated as well, so here's hoping. Let me know down in the comments what was your favorite book of the month and how your February reading is going so far. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, I hope you have all the great reads. Bye!